Leon does a lot of work at the United Nations, which is actually how he got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He is the first and so far only Hawaiian ever to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. So, can you please tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the United Nations?
All right. Well, it has to do with just what we're talking about, and that is informing the general public about what went on here in Hawaii and what our intentions are. And in doing so, we've had representation, attending various bodies of the United Nations for the last 40 years. But at that time, we were still exploring what is it that we want, So in the last 20 years, we've become a little bit more focused, and particularly in the last 10 years, and even more so in the last 5 years. And the reason I break it down to these things is because we have been able to synthesize a lot more about what is it exactly that we want, and what is it that would not appeal, but would work at the United Nations. Often people think you go to the United Nations, and you file some kind of an appeal or a protest or a petition, that it would then be taken up, and the United Nations would attend to it. But they only do so if there's an urgency to it. Otherwise, they've got so much work going on and they only can take care of the urgent stuff. What's going on in Syria and the Rohingya. And in China with the Uyghurs and things like that. So they're pretty much preoccupied with crises that they're trying to stamp out. So us coming along and say we want to peacefully restore our country that was taken 126 years ago is not really high on the list of priorities for them. But what I'm doing at the United Nations is to fill in the huge blank that had occurred since 1893, and particularly since 1959, when the the state of Hawaii was formed, and the United Nations approved that. So the idea is to start giving our narrative, that is to start to make friends and influence people. And so I have been there for the last 12 years at the United Nations. Simply attending these different meetings and interjecting and putting in our perspective from our point of view of world situations, as well as telling people about our situation and continuing to tell them. Repetition is very effective, particularly if it's very persistent over a series of years. So what's happened over the years is that particularly the diplomats and the representatives and officials at the United Nations have become familiar enough with our narrative that they understand that what we're trying to do and what the problem is. So this has taken a long time, and it's basically foreign relations. It's relationship building. And we also learned what the United Nations can and cannot do, or what states within the United Nations can or cannot do. It's a political body like the United States Congress or the European Union, and so there are many countries involved here, and each country has been mandated by their leaders when they send a representative to the United Nations. Their main instruction is that they look out for the best interests of their country. So whatever votes you see happening on the floor of the General Assembly or in the Security Council and places like that is not necessarily reflective of the merit of the case or anything. It really has to do with, is this politically acceptable to us to vote for? And many times a very noble and just cause is not politically acceptable if it's going to bring harm to your own country. And so we have to take this all into consideration. So this has been a long learning curve for us, but we believe we're there, and what we've been able to do recently is communicate with these countries with that knowledge, not putting them on the spot or having them stick their necks out or asking them to stick their necks out for us, but finding ways that they can assist us with the least possible backlash for themselves. Yeah. So what I've been doing is really attending these meetings, talking story with the people there, and making friends and telling about what we're doing. In fact, so we've been getting a lot of international press that basically, says that they're aware that Hawaii is a country under occupation or some strange form of occupation. And what we're doing is we're working on avenues or on actions that can be taken that would be the least harmful to the people who would help us.